Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going through a couple of things that were like about growing up mixed race in the UK. Now I think a lot of these can apply to people who are non-white, to be honest. If you relate, you relate. If you don't, you don't. So the first problem that I had to deal with, and it's much better now, so much better, praising Rihanna, praising places like Bobbi Brown. When I tried to have makeup, it was a myth, okay? Shade for me, not happening. You go to high street shops like Boots, Superdrug, and you're like, I'm gonna buy some foundation, I want some Maybelline, some Rimmel London, I'm ready. And then you'd go at the colours and it was like 50 shades of beige, and at the end you'd have like this. You would have, I'd say maybe 5 to 6 of like the darker colours, and then in the middle you'd have like the transition colours, my sort of shade colours. 3 always had the same names. It was always things like sunset, caramel, bronze. That was the names. Always guaranteed. And it'll be something like honey kissed. Like, what does that even mean? But here we are. When you're mixed race, you have so many different complexions going on your face that you kind of have to pick one of them and then just go with that. And then just cover the whole face in that one shade. However, for me, these shades just were not hitting any of mine. So I always looked atrocious because you'd have this face which was like bronzed, and then you'd have the rest of my body and it'd be like, what? So when Fenty launched here and I went to get my like test done to see what shade I am, even the makeup artist was like, yeah, mixed race people are the hardest people to do makeup for because we have so many different undertones, because of the fact that we've got a whole mix going on. We've got like a paint shop going on under our skin, and she's like, to find the correct shading can be quite a challenge because what could look good here won't necessarily look good here because we've got a different undertone here. And I was like, girl, I know. It is a struggle. Thankfully, people like Rihanna, brands like MAC, Bobbi Brown came through, and your girl is thriving now. Another one is Nude clothing, myth. Nude makeup like lipstick, myth. If I tried to wear the nudes, as they're called in the shop in terms of clothing and makeup, I look like I have died. I look like a ghost, or I look like I've got a deadly disease. I just look atrocious. It is ridiculous. I remember I was trying on nude lipsticks. I put it on, I looked like I had been kissed by death. I was like, why do my lips look inside out? That's what I want to know. What's going on here? Why do my lips look like I have been stranded in the desert with no water for a month and my lips have just frozen? What is that about? You couldn't get nude tights. What you'd have, you'd have 50 shades of beige. You'd have like 2 of the darker tones, and then you'd have like 2 of the transition tones. And again, it was atrocious. And they had weird names like bamboo. What does that even mean? Like, new clothes, who is she? And moving on to the crown hair. So hair care, again, it's not popping. It was not popping when I was growing up. The only thing you could have were the quote unquote like white hair products. I don't really like saying that because I feel like hair is hair. Do you know what I mean? This hair, the products I put on this hair doesn't know if this hair is connected to a white person, a black person, a mixed race person, an Asian person. It doesn't know, it just knows it's hair. The issue was though that these products were very, very much targeted towards a certain demographic. To get curly stuff, it wasn't a thing. It was not a thing in the mainstream shops. So we had like the, what we call the black hair shops here, where that's where I go for like to get my bonnet, to get my sort of brushes and things like that. That is where I go, and that is where I used to go to get, well, not me, my mum used to go to get my hair oils and things like that. However, when it came to curly stuff, this was like kind of uncharted territory for us. We couldn't really get anything that we knew would work. There was nothing like that, and it took me until I got older, until I started looking on YouTube and things like that, doing my own research, that I then started to find things like Cantu. So now I use a different brand. I don't actually use Cantu anymore. I know, cries in Cantu. I used to be obsessed with that brand, but then for some reason it just wasn't vibing with my hair, and it was just, yeah. But now my hair is suave. It's a bit frizzy today, not gonna lie. That's because I'm in my house. Related to hair care is hairdressers. I think I mentioned this in a previous video. It was quite hard for me to find a hairdresser who would do my hair. We would go in, they would see my hair and they would say, we don't do that type of hair. And I'm like, honey, it is curly, so you don't know how to do curly hair. What is that about? Touch wood, I've not had that same sort of experience as I've got older and as we've become more progressive and inclusive. One struggle was that when I was with my white family, you could sometimes see confusion if I was the only non-white person in the group. I remember there was a time I was talking to someone and they were like, oh, so who's that woman? Which was my white sister. And I said, oh, that's my sister. And they were like, no, but how? But she can't be your sister, right? Like, she's not your sister? Or like, as in, maybe you married into the family? I was like, no, my sister. And then obviously I explained the breakdown of the family. That doesn't really happen now as much for me anyway. Obviously, depending on where you live in the country, it will be completely different. Another thing I've noticed with being mixed race is you code switch, but you code switch between families. So obviously there's the general code switch in terms of if you're at work, if you're with friends, if you're with your family, but I code switch sometimes between families depending on which side I am. For example, if I'm with my Jamaican family, then I can use patois and things like that I know they'll understand. Whereas I might not necessarily say the same thing if I'm with my white side because they might not understand the reference or they might not understand the joke. And so I definitely will use different words depending on which side I'm with. The final thing, and my favourite thing, because I wanted to end it on a good note, and that is that we experience multiple cultures. Now, I experience two cultures because one side of me is English, the other side of me is Jamaican. Loving it. I experience both cultures. If you're mixed race and you are two different races compared to the race you're living in, and that's even cooler because you experience three cultures and I'm jealous. So yeah, I love experiencing new cultures. That's why I'm learning two languages, because I just love learning new things, trying new foods, speaking to new people. So I'm incredibly blessed that I get to experience two different cultures. It always reminds me that I am blessed when I speak to friends who don't know much about the Jamaican culture, and then I'm able to explain to them, because to me I'm like, oh, this is normal, this food that we eat is normal, we eat this all the time. But for someone who's not Jamaican or someone who's not familiar with Jamaican food, for example, they won't know what that is. So I get the opportunity to inform them about them, share the culture and let them appreciate what we have been appreciating for generations. So that is one thing I'm immensely proud of, pleased of. I love being able to experience multiple cultures. That wraps up my video about some things that I've noticed about being mixed race in the UK growing up. Like I said, a lot of those would apply to someone who's not mixed race as well, so someone who's not white, because things like finding nude coloured clothes, makeup, hair products, that has been a struggle for a lot of us. Even when I've spoken to friends who aren't mixed race and who are of different races, ethnicities, they've been able to mirror exactly what I've said and said, yep, I experienced that too. So these are things that we kind of share, but thankfully in the country I live in, a lot of those are not problems anymore or are en route to being solved completely, which I'm very, very happy about. Let me know down below what it was like for you growing up wherever you grew up. I would love to know if there are anything in common that you're like, oh, hang on, I experienced that too, or I didn't have that, I had this instead. Let me know down below. As that brings us to the end, only one thing left to say: please do smash the subscribe, the like, the share, join this family, and as always, have a blessed day, and until next time, goodbye everyone.